Hello, divine community, and welcome to today's very divine, delicious episode of Wet and Worthy Woman. And we are joined by a absolutely drop dead gorgeous, wise, wild, divine guest. Fabienne Annick is on the podcast with us today, and we are talking about forgiving the masculine and seeing the good and the God in men, which is such a deep journey. Loyal listeners will know that I've been on this journey for some time, clearing all the stories, clearing all the traumas, clearing all the things out the way so that we can actually receive the divine love of the men in our lives, whether they're your brothers, your partners, your colleagues. And Fabienne is here to help us do that. So, actually, I wanted to introduce you with some amazing words that you wrote on your recent Instagram post. So, I'm going to read them out. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah, amazing. So, Fabienne writes, "It's literally my job to heal my relationship with men. Being a woman who does men's work has meant consistent initiations, lessons, and shadow work around men. It's a constant practice, an active choice to see the best in men, to support men, to treat men with respect and reverence and honor, to find the ways that I don't trust men or have ideas about how men are or should be, to look at the micro moments when I don't treat them with respect or reverence and examine why. I commit to this practice because it's the truest thing for me, because I think a deep level of reverence and respect and trust is the most ancient natural template and the key to our future. This is why I do what I do. We're here to support, celebrate, respect each other." Fabienne, that is gorgeous. So you also describe yourself as an intimacy and relationship mentor devoted to believing in the goodness of men. Do you want to add anything to that yummy intro that you so divinely wrote?
Yeah, I've worked with men for about 5 years as a love and intimacy coach, sexuality, intimacy, sex, love, spirit. It's taken different iterations in how I describe it, but I've been working with men for about 5 years, and during that time, I've never stopped working with women. And a big reason for that is that I truly believe, like I said in that post that I wrote recently, like I believe we need to do this together. And I believe my role is sort of to be a bridge in between and to as a woman do this work with men. And then that is inherently informed by my womanhood, but also the conversations that I have with women who I'm working with, friends of mine, clients. And so much of what my work is the inner work of what it looks like to actually create that bridge of connection, and then to create spaces where we can actually lean into that, because I believe that's what we all want. I believe that we want to actually lean into each other and build trust with each other and actually heal with each other.
Mm, yes, yes, there is a deep longing to meet each other. I mean, I mainly work with women. I have worked with about maybe four men, but I've recently started giving ceremonial body work to men, and it's been so healing for me to have masculine clients
Mhm.
in that space. And so many of them come into the massage space with me and they say, the only time I've been touched by a woman is when I'm having sex or when I'm fighting, or like if they've been fighting with a man. So the only time in their life is when they're being hit or fucked. And then they don't get that intimacy and that love and that care and that nurturing. And they deeply crave it. So thank you for doing the work you do. I'm curious to know what led you to work with men. What led you to work with men mainly? And what's your story? What brought you there? Have you always like honored and revered and worshipped the masculine, or has it been a
Mhm.
journey for you?
It's definitely been a journey. It's sort of both. It's definitely been a journey. I had some trauma and harm from very early on in life at the hands of men, and also grew up very close to the men in my family. I have four brothers, four blood brothers and zero blood sisters. So I always have had this relationship with men. My brother, growing up, one of my brothers, the brother who I was raised with primarily, we were best friends to the max. Like we were so close. And so there was such and he was my little brother, and I felt like his protector, and he also felt like my protector. And we had such a beautiful childhood together. We had such a beautiful connection, and still do. I value him and his life and his path and his opinions. And we're so different, but I've always had him as a template for this like deep devotion to a boy, to a man, and vice versa. And then have these other incredible brothers as well, and have my dad who raised me, and my biological father. And I've it's been a journey, and there has always been this deep acknowledgement of the men in my life, and a deep appreciation. I've known what it's been like to be very, very hurt by men. And I've known what it's like to be deeply cherished and deeply cared for. And I have, I don't want to say fought, because, but sometimes it has felt like fighting. I have like fought for my connection to trusting men. Like there have been moments where I've found myself having assumptions or expectations, or he's always going to, he never will, dot, dot, dot. And I've really made it a priority in my life to lean into like, no, I'm not going to let that become the lens that I see half the population with. And so about 7 years ago, I started working with women around sexual trauma. I had my own sexual trauma, which led me into the realms of that, and then started working with women doing trauma release body work, and I absolutely loved it. And within a year or two, the sort of the little signal kept being like, you need to work with men, you need to work with men. And what I saw was that there are so many resources for women around sexuality and intimacy. And if a woman asked, who would you recommend I work with? I had like 20 great recommendations. And if men asked, I had fewer, and even fewer where if they were actually looking to work with a woman. And so it just kept being revealed, like, I feel so comfortable with boys and men because of growing up with four brothers, and there's such a naturalness in my desire to support each other, and it's so deeply needed. It's so deeply needed to have more spaces for men to explore into their own intimacy, their own sexuality, their own relationship to women, to other men, and to support that movement, and to support men in healing, because for the sake of them and for the sake of the women around them, the more that we can heal, the less likely we are to hurt the people around us as women and men. So it was kind of a natural transition into that over the course of my life.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's so true that I see an abundance of spaces, women's circles, workshops for women, women only spaces. I mean, I think about when I did my own training on trauma release bodywork, it was women only. And they told us and explained to us the reasons why. But now that I offer that service to men, men at the beginning, I actually thought men are going to think that I'm going to give them a hand job. Men are going to come to me for, I have my own stories about like men just want me for my body. Men just want me for one thing. They're just going to book into the de-armoring because they think that I'm going to touch their cock. And I had to get to a point where I really deeply felt the call to serve men without my stories projecting onto them, to see the good in them, to believe the good in them, to welcome them in safely. And the men that have walked in have blown my mind. They have all come for the healing of that masculine feminine relationship, because many of them are like, I'm uncomfortable being intimate with women. I don't feel safe being intimate with women. So to receive a touch, a sacred, safe touch from me that has no motive, I'm not trying to have sex with them. That's actually why they come. So I thought they'd come thinking they'd get like a sexual hit out of it. And actually, they're coming for the opposite reason, because they actually want to be held in a space where they don't have to perform, where they don't have to provide a result, where they don't have to hold everything. They're coming for the pure reason of being like receiving. And that space for them is too rare. It's too
Yeah.
rare. And it's so incredible to be in the witness, like in myself. When I hold men, I see myself witnessing the healing taking place in my body, in my cells, in my stories, and it's all being rewritten. And I just want to thank you for being brave enough to step into holding men,
Mm.
because it took me years of cultivating the bravery to actually do that. So I
Yeah.
see you and I honor you, and I'm so happy. And I see the comments that men leave about your work and your programs, and I'm just like, thank goddess for this woman providing a safe space for men. So thank you for, yeah, helping us all, myself included, from following your
Mm.
content, remove my shit stories about the masculine
Yeah.
slowly.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, something I'll say is like there's a reason they're there, right? It's not like we've just like created these stories out of nowhere. Like there's a reason they're there from our own lives and from the generations before us. And so I think it's important for us to also acknowledge like there's a reason why I have this belief, or like there's a reason why I have this pain. There's a reason why my nervous system is anticipating something. Does it mean that it's true or that it's like the lens or the filter that I want to see all men through? No, but there is a good reason why. And that takes, I think, a little bit of the it takes a little bit of the edge off of like, well, I need to think about men like this, or I shouldn't be thinking about men like this. Like, no, it actually makes a lot of sense. And it's not necessarily based in reality, but it might be based in your reality. It might be based in your experiences. And now this is a way of protecting yourself. This also might be things that you've learned again for like generations epigenetically. You might have like a deep programming about what is true. And also, you might have had many experiences that have like proven that belief true. And so the process of unwinding that pain is a deeply personal thing that isn't just like a mind decision of like, now I'm going to shift into this. It's like healing the pain that's there, healing the wounding that's there.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for bringing that. Actually, it makes me think of something. I've been posting recently about like feeling like the first woman in a while in my lineage that's choosing to remember the divine masculine or divine union as an option, as a reality. And my 95-year-old grandma, bless her soul, is still alive. But the other week, she thought she was going to die. And one of my dear friends said to me, oh, you should go and like get her most potent nuggets of wisdom. If she's going to leave this planet, like what wisdom will she leave you with? So I was like, great idea. She'll love this. So I rocked up at her house and I was like, I thought that I'd ask you, Grandma, what the three things that you want me to know as a woman in this lifetime. Like you've lived 95 years on this earth. What are the three biggest lessons you've learned? And the first thing she said was like so much evidence around my family lineage experience with men. She said, considering this is like the most valuable piece of wisdom that she wanted to leave me with on her deathbed. And she said, be careful of men. You have no idea what they're capable of. And I was like, oh man, I've got so much work to do here, like in myself.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it goes deep. And
Wow.
bringing that as well, a lot of the listeners of the podcast today, a lot of my audience, a lot of the women I work with are trauma survivors. They've been through a lot at the hands of humans, but a lot at the hands of men
Yeah.
because they relate to my story, and yourself, included, having experienced abandonment or violation or trauma at the hands of men. A lot of the
Yeah.
women listening will relate to that. So why is it so important for us all to stop blaming men and to stop putting them in that dangerous box of men will hurt me, men will use me, men will abuse me? Why is it so important for us to stop
Yeah.
blaming them?
It's such a great question. And I think it really speaks to the blame and the pain and the hurt, and it's all within this cyclical pattern that's been going on for thousands of years, where we've lived in an unhealthy relationship between men and women as like a general framework, I would say, where there's not honor, where there's not respect, where there's not deep gratitude and appreciation for what the other has to offer.
Mm.
And when we blame men as a whole, it it's almost like it's this sound this sounds kind of funny, but it's like in a way, and like don't take this the wrong way, but it's almost like victim blaming in a way when it becomes this like blaming all men, because we live in a structure where there has been so much oppression of women, so much taking advantage of women, so much disrespect, dishonoring, lack of protection of women. And it's this structure that has been in place for thousands of years. And there are plenty of men in today's day and age who are violent, who are unkind, who do not have good intentions. But I would say the majority of men do not fit within that category. But a percentage of those men have been raised in an environment, in families and societies and cultures where they're not taught how to respect women, where they're not taught how to honor and protect and care for women. And so when we see men through this lens, it actually holds them in that place. When we acknowledge, I was deeply hurt at the hands of a man, and I'm going to set very clear boundaries about that, experience my pain or even my incapacity to set boundaries because I never was taught how to have them. And when we choose to do that with the scenario and with that particular man, or even with the system that created this, that's one thing. But when we hold the lens and the box for all men of this is how men are, it disempowers them, it disempowers us, it disempowers our relationship between each other. It doesn't actually help us move towards anything. And it's completely understandable, right? It's a protection mechanism, and it's based in our experiences. So this isn't to say don't think of it that way, but rather we have the opportunity to actually choose to see something differently as like the lens with which to see all men. And when we do that, we get to then work with our own pain, as opposed to all men are like this and I need to protect myself. It's like not all men are like this, right? A percentage of men have maybe done things to us or done things to other women. And then there are a lot of men who maybe have done things. There's a percentage who have done things intentionally. There's a percentage of men who have done things unintentionally or from their own trauma, or had that modeled to them, or were peer pressured into it, or literally learned that what they're doing wasn't a bad thing to be doing. They're not inherently bad men. They might have, their actions might be deeply harmful, and those have been influenced by the system that we're living within. And when we actually choose to find the good in them, honor them for the goodness of their hearts, like if we can and when we can, it actually over time, culturally, societally, will shift the structure that we're working in, where we're actually honestly honoring each other. And it's not this like, well, you have to do it first. It's like we've got to do it together at the same time. And we don't want to live in this constant fear of the other, of men. We don't, I definitely don't want to and haven't wanted to. And so when we move into a space of, okay, I don't agree with this, I need to set boundaries for myself, we actually get to come into a different relationship that is one that we want to. We're not necessarily doing it for them. Yes, we do it for them, but we do it for ourselves, not because we have to, but because we want to live in trust. We want to have men who love us and care for us. We want to love men. We want divine union. We want to find that harmony with each other. And it's up to all of us, and we can't wait for anyone else to do it.
Oh, I just felt so much of that in my body. And it's just when you say, like, we want divine union, it just vibrates truth. Every woman I work with is craving more depth, more sacredness, more spirit, more divine in the bedroom. They want to be met they want to meet the god with them, and they want to be met as a goddess. They want that union of sacredness. And I apologize, everyone, that we're using pretty heteronormative language today. We're talking about the masculine feminine relationship, but please translate this to the gender that you're loving currently, or just the people that identify as masculine in your life. um but there was something that I use there when I work with women on rewriting their kind of mindset and their beliefs and their stories around the masculine. And I ask them to feel in their body if they could pick something that felt pleasurable and empowering. It probably wouldn't be a story of, he's going to cheat on me, he's going to leave me, he's going to
Yeah.
abandon me. That doesn't feel good in my body. I want to choose pleasure in my body at every moment, at every possibility. I want to choose like sacredness in my body at every opportunity, at every available moment. And that means rewriting and restructuring these beliefs about men, because those beliefs that men are dangerous or they're going to hurt me just feels like contraction in the body. So much of what you said then just relaxed my body. I was breathing like a sigh of relief just hearing you talking about that, remembering union. And I wanted to ask you actually about how we as women, because you mentioned and you touched on, men being raised in a society culturally and having their own set of conditioning. And I think, yes, women, we've been conditioned a lot around, you know, look hot but not too hot because then you're a slut, and express your sexuality because it's shameful to not be in a relationship, but also don't express it outside of the bedroom, just keep it for your partner. We've had our set of conditioning, but they almost have it more than us. Even they're just like us with that set of conditioning of, you know be flirtatious but not too much because then you're sleazy, but if you don't flirt at all then you're not man enough and you're a coward and you don't have any balls. And be manly and masculine but not too much because then you're aggressive, but not too little because then you're weak or you're gay. And it's like this whole set of conditioning that they kind of can't get it right. So how can we, as the feminine, hold space for them to rewrite their beliefs around their own masculinity? Because whilst
Yeah.
we're rewriting them, like you said, we do this together. So how
Yeah.
can we support men to kind of welcome all of them, this like softness and the masculinity in its
Mm.
power? How can we welcome all of it and help them rewrite that conditioning?
The first thing that comes up for me with this question is to look at all the places where we subconsciously and unconsciously hold those expectations of them, and for us to really start to notice. And I remember this years ago. I was with my ex-partner, and I noticed that sometimes when he would express a certain energy, it was like a certain flavor of like emotionality or sensitivity, I would start to like pull back. I'd start to draw back. And I was like, huh, what's happening there? Is it that I don't trust that he can hold me in this? Is it that what is it? And what I realized is, oh no, this is actually conditioned beliefs about how men should be. This is actually a conditioned belief about what masculinity in men should look like. And my body is responding to it. This isn't my intuition telling me something. Like, this is my body responding to a conditioned belief. What do I need to do in order to decondition that? What do I need to do in order to shake that free? Which for me, in sort of like a simple explanation, was like feel the sensation of it and allow my body to, through movement, breath, and sounding, like allow my body to actually shake through from that by tapping into what my truth cord feels like versus what the conditioned belief feels like. And so in that, I was feeling like discomfort, closure, and almost like the best way to describe it would be like almost disgust. So I like let my body, not with him, of course, but I let my body move through it and like express it while connecting to my truth of the belief that rings true in like the depth of my being around the expression of men. And so I think the more that we can the more that we can decondition, the more that we then naturally hold space for that. And the same goes for men, right? When if a man asked me, what can I do? I would say, like, start with yourself, decondition your beliefs around what a woman should be like, and actually create space for the full spectrum of what she is, and allow yourself to process any uncomfortable sensations that you have when she shows you all that she is. And the same goes for men, because we have these expectations of each other. We have these, and with men, there's this complexity of like, there's this sort of belief that like women are full spectrum and women have like this whole range, and then men are supposed to be this like solid rock. And we all have masculine and we all have feminine. And when we try to cut anyone off from any of those, it's just a mess. And there are ways that we can choose to intentionally cultivate more of that masculinity or femininity in our lives, in our relationships, in our lovemaking. But when we start to shame or cut ourselves off from something that's actually coming naturally, as opposed to like a conditioned habit, if that makes sense, then it starts to actually create some issues. And we need to, yes, cultivate the energies that we're wanting to ignite within our being and our body and that feels natural for us. And, but to also acknowledge the fullness of ourselves. And, you know, we see it with women with sort of like our inner masculine energy, where we can kind of shame ourselves for being too masculine. But then it's interesting, you said something before around like not trusting the masculine. And it's interesting because there's like the masculine and then there's men. And I think in certain ways, as women, we can believe that the masculine way, the masculine energies of moving through the world are the right ways, because that is how most of the world has functioned for the past couple thousand years, few thousand years. This more, and specifically more recently, where there's this like masculine approach, this like linear, directive, goal-oriented approach. And so we can actually believe that that is the way more easily for many of us than we can believe that the feminine approach is the way. So then we're believing that the masculine way is the way, but then we're not trusting men. So there's this like believing in the masculine way, but not trusting men, and not necessarily trusting the masculine or the feminine way. And then, and when I say masculine and feminine, I'm not talking about men and women, I'm talking about like these more energetic qualities. And when we start to actually honor the feminine way and honor feminine energies, then we also simultaneously start to honor masculine way and masculine energies. And I just went on a total side swoop rant there. But yeah, there's it all starts in our inner navigation of here is my physical reaction to conditioning, and here's how I can lean into trusting these different energies and men as sort of two separate things.
Yes, thank you so much for separating those. And it's really interesting that I find that a lot of the women that I work with don't trust the masculine energy within them. And I didn't used to either. So, for example, I used to push, but it wasn't my masculine energy. It was my terrified little girl that was like, I wasn't loved by my dad. So now I'm going to work extra fucking hard. So it was like my wounded shadow feminine teenager having a strop, pushing me to work really hard. And then my inner divine masculine, who I call my inner daddy, he tells me to like get in the bath, take a break. You've done enough today. So now I see that as my masculine energy, is that compassionate voice that holds the safe container for me to rest and receive. And that's my true masculine energy. The pushing that I'm doing, the hustle that I'm doing, that's my feminine energy in overdrive, trying to earn his approval. and
Right.
trying to earn his need for rest. So many women come to me and they're like, I'm stuck in my masculine energy. And I'm like, I don't think you are, because your divine masculine energy would tell you to have a fucking bubble bath, and he would
Right.
lay out the perfect safe container for you to receive and rest. Like, what we're stuck in is a patriarchal, it's like an inner patriarchy. It's not an inner
Mhm.
masculine. But to
Right.
believe that, I had to completely rewrite my relationship and my beliefs around what masculine energy actually is, and reclaim that as the version of the father that I never had, as the
Right.
compassionate, giving, space holding, safe part of me, as this divine, devoted inner daddy that's like,
I
sit the
love that.
fuck down, you've done enough. He's super sexy. He's like, he dominates me several times a day, because my feminine CEO wants to sometimes work on overdrive, and inner daddy comes in like, you are working her too hard. Stay away from my goddess. I'm going to take care of her now. And it feels so good that that's my masculine energy
I
now,
love
not the
that. I
hustle.
love that
He's
so
like
much.
the, yeah, he's like my little inner hero that protects me from the
So good.
hustle.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. I need to
Yeah,
do
and I
like
think,
an,
there's like healthy and unhealthy masculine energy and feminine energy. And so to honor and acknowledge within ourselves and externally what's the masculine energy and the feminine energy that actually feels healthy and good to me.
yes, that is such a nice reflection question. Everyone, I hope you can like receive Fabienne's wisdom in your voice when you hear these stories coming up around your energy, and you can hear this wisdom coming through. There's something that I actually wanted to know in terms of that theme of kind of allowing the full spectrum of the men in our lives,
Mm.
and how we can hold space and a safe space for his vulnerability. Because I think, like you said, sometimes when men open up vulnerably, we can sometimes, or what I notice is in myself sometimes, if I'm like low as fuck capacity and have nothing to give, if my man comes to me with something vulnerable, I take it personally. I get triggered. I blame myself. I assume that he's going to abandon me.
Yeah.
And then I can't hold safe space for his fears. He's bringing me his fears. He's opening his heart. And most women I work with are craving for their man's depths. They want to see his heart. They want to feel his heart. They want to know his feelings and his emotional side that he's been so conditioned not to share. But then when men finally open up and share that, women freak the fuck out, and we're like, oh my god, he's criticizing me. I'm not enough, and we go into that story and we can't hold a safe space for them. So how
Yeah.
can we as women work on holding that safe space for a man's vulnerability? Like, what do you feel from all the men that you've worked with? What are they craving? What helps them in that vulnerable space?
That's such a good question. With the men that I work with, I think part of what supports them or feels so safe for them is just simply having someone hear it, someone listening to it, which is way harder to do with our lovers or partners than it is to do with a client. Way harder. So if we want to really hear them, a big part of that is working with our shadow bits, working with our shadow pieces, working with our pain, our wounding around I'm too much, I'm not enough, he should be this way, he should be that way, whatever he's saying means ABC about me, and really finding the part of us that believes that, caring for her so that we can show up as a woman and not a little girl. And there are times for us to go into our little girl and to nourish our little girl. And often that's not the with our lover or our partner. There are moments, right, where we can like help each other care for our inner little ones. But I know for myself, I want to meet my husband as a woman. I want to care for him as a woman. And I know that I can best care for him in a way that is healthy, in a way that is integrated if I'm showing up after having done a lot of inner child work, after really caring for the part of me that takes it personally, tending to her and being like, I hear you, babe. And like, this isn't about you. This is actually about him right now. And it's for me that I love inner child work and archetype work because it's like I can call on myself and be like, girl, come on. Show up for him right now. Show up for this man. And like, yes, there might be conditioning and there might be pain and there might be expectations and there might be my own feelings, but this matters to me to show up for him like this. And so I'm going to do it. and, and if there's a part that needs to get tended to, I can tend to her later.
Mm,
And I find that to actually be deeply empowering to be like, not right now,
mm,
not right now. But that's very hard to do if those parts of us haven't had an opportunity to express, an opportunity to heal, an opportunity to feel heard in how deeply wounded we've been, how deeply afraid we've been, how deeply abandoned we've felt. And so when we can continuously come back to our own self-work around abandonment, around our inner child, around our expectations, around our wounding, around our pain, the more that we do that work, the more we can tap into the version of ourselves that we would like to show up with in those situations and be like, I got you. I love you. I respect you. And I'm caring for you not as your mother, but as your lover, as your woman. And when you think about, I'm thinking of like hero movies where there's like the king and the queen, and he's like, they're like the warrior and he's wounded, and she's like had it rough. And she's like showing up for him in the moment when he needs it. And then she like, I don't know, I'm just thinking of all these. And I love movies as like a potential, as like potential archetype templates for us to look at and be like, oh, that's what it can feel like. That's not the full spectrum of reality and like not necessarily completely true, but it gives us these templates to look to as like, what would it look like for me to just like show the fuck up in this moment and then later do whatever work I need to continuously do in order to be able to show up like this.
mm. Ah, yes. I feel like I really need to share with everyone the power of that as well. Like you said, it's empowering as fuck to show up as that safe space for the romantic partner in our life. And I experienced this recently, actually just a couple of days ago with my man, and we woke up in bed and we're taking a really big step in our relationship, which is a
Mm.
fairly new relationship. We only met at the beginning of 2024, so we've been together for a year, and we're taking a really, really big step. And he was expressing some fears about what if it's too soon? What if it's
Mm.
wrong? What if we fuck it all up? What if everything falls apart? And I can see that 6 months ago, I would have freaked the fuck out and been like, oh my God, you're doubting this relationship. How am I going to hold that? Like, why is he doubting this relationship? It's the best thing ever. Like, why would it fall apart? But
Yeah.
in that moment, I could remove myself and I could hear him and listen to him and understand him and not shame him and not make it about me and not take over.
Yeah.
And I held the space for him and I loved him in that and I accepted him
Mm.
in that. And then afterwards, a few moments later, he was like, oh my God, I don't know why I ever doubted this. This is the best thing ever. Of course, we're going to be fine. I've never felt more in love with you. And every
Mm.
time I can hold a safe space for him, and I can accept him and I can listen to him and I can hold that center. I can hold myself in my center and show up as a fucking queen, not a
Yeah.
child. He deepens into his heart and his heart cracks open. And I'm not saying to anyone to do it for that reason, to manipulate more love into their life, but it's a pretty great side
Kind
effect.
of the opposite of what we're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's just a gorgeous divine moment to actually
Mm.
show up, because the amount of times he shows up for me when I'm freaking out about business, about family, about, I don't know, the bills, money, finances, and he just shows up
Yeah.
and hears me in all of my freakouts, and I'm like, I can do this. I
Yeah.
want to do this for him. He deserves this. The
Yeah.
same amount of safety and reassurance that he gives me, I want to give it
Yeah.
all back times 10.
Yeah. And so often it's just wanting to be heard. It's just wanting to soundboard something and to create space for that is
Mm.
so powerful. And again, like if there's like tons of abandonment wounding and like tons of pain there, we it's not about bypassing that and just like showing up anyway. It's like we do address that. But when we deeply address it with a practitioner, with a therapist, with a coach, with somebody who can support us in doing that,
Mm.
then we're not constantly acting it out, and we actually have the spaciousness within that. And I think, when a lot of women can get into this feeling of like it just keeps getting proved to me again and again and again that like I can't trust men, that men are this way, that I can't lean in, that I will be abandoned. And when that is our truth, that is how our reticular activating system, this sort of base area within our brain that filters in information and opportunities, it's impacted by the beliefs that we hold. And so when we hold beliefs about men, then we literally, like, our brains are only taking in information and opportunities that align with that information that we already have, with that belief that we already have. When we actively decondition, when we actively start to heal our pain, our reticular activating system, our filter of information actually shifts, and we start to see people who are good for us. And all of a sudden, the all men are bad, that percentage starts to go down in our perception, where we're like, wait, maybe only 50% of men are bad. Wait, maybe only 10% of men are bad. Right? And it's like, we actually start to perceive it differently, and we start to see the really deeply good men around us. The more we heal, the more we can trust ourselves to also have we can trust ourselves to perceive correctly. We can perceive what is healthy, what is unhealthy. We actually become way more capable of discernment, discerning what feels healthy, what feels unhealthy. The more we heal, the more discernment we have. And so then we start to actually be surrounded by men who are honoring us, by men who are caring for us. And then it starts to shift. And then we start to see like, oh, the good men are everywhere. And the more that we heal, the more that that is revealed to us, because we want to attract really, really good men, and healing those things and allowing ourselves to shift our beliefs actually allows our subconscious to perceive those good men, to attract those good men, and then to also trust ourselves to set boundaries when someone doesn't feel good, or when someone is like, oh, this feels familiar, and I'm not going to continuously be drawn to that in order to heal it, because our subconscious wants to heal our pain, and so it will draw in that pain either because it wants to heal it and or because it feels familiar and therefore safe. And we start to actually be drawn to other people, and that becomes way less appealing, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm not into those men, I'm not into playing out those patterns. I'm actually surrounding myself with good men. I'm actually giving myself to these relationships and nurturing the healthy relationships. And at first they might feel a little bit less exciting, because typically the drama of those ones feels great, until we do more and more healing. And this actually becomes what feels best. And then we repattern our beliefs about men. We are able to show up like you were just speaking about, which is just such a beautiful example of showing up for the men who are important to us, feeling this energy of like, we're on the same team. It's not me against you. It's not women against men. If it's got to be against anything, it's us against our conditioning. But more ideally, we're moving towards something together. It's us for union. It's us for love. And so then it's not based in overgiving or trying to prove or trying to take care of each other. It's based in this, like, it's us walking side by side, moving towards wholeness and truth and love and union.
Mm. Oh my God, fuck yes. Fuck yes to that reality. And I mean, everything you've mentioned is exactly how I work with women. I do a workshop called Let's Talk About Men, and it's all about rewriting and rewiring that reticular activating system. And I tell women to start looking for men doing good things when you're driving in your car. Look at the man
Yeah.
like taking his baby for a walk. look out for that reality. Like when you're in the supermarket, just ask a random male checkout guy for help, even if you
Yeah,
don't need it, because it just like rewires your reality of like, there's good men everywhere.
totally, totally.
So thank you
Well,
for
and
bringing
this one
that.
actually, I love that you just said this about the grocery store because this is a practice that I started doing a few years ago where I noticed at some point in my life that I like wouldn't ask men for help because I felt like I needed to prove that I was capable. And I was like, why? That's part of my conditioning that I need to prove to them that I can do it alone. I don't want to do it. What? Like, I don't need to prove that. And I'm 5 feet tall. I literally would like climb up shelves to get the thing on the higher shelf. And I'd be like climbing back down, like knocking crackers off the shelves. And then I just started to find a tall man in the shop and be like, hey, could you help me with this? And the way that I saw them light up because I was asking them to support me, they were like, yes, like, let me help you. Let me be useful in this like little tiny way because it genuinely feels amazing to be supportive of one another. It genuinely feels so deeply enriching to be able to help each other out with the littlest things, to feel like wanted and needed and valued for even just because I'm 6 feet tall. Like there's there's so much beauty in just choosing to ask each other for support and give each other support in those ways, the little ways.
Mm, I could really do an entire episode on this. I want to add so many stories. And what you just said is beautiful because actually, one of the biggest beliefs I found I had to rewrite, and a lot of the female clients I work with resonate with this one, is like, because my dad left when I never even met him. I was like 1 years old. He wasn't around for the first year of my life. He was working abroad. So I never really met him. And so I picked up the belief that I was a burden just for being born. So asking for support was terrifying because I was like, well, I already feel like a burden just for existing. So asking for anything was a big push. So I slipped into hyper independence, like you said, trying to prove that I don't
Yeah.
need him. I'm easy. I'm an easy woman. I'm low maintenance. I don't need anything. I'm like, the cool girl conditioning, the being terrified of being high maintenance. And now I work with women on embracing their high maintenance. But it took so much for me to ask for support. And actually just like yesterday, I asked my partner because I'm just at the end of my bleed and my womb was a bit uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, I could really do like, yeah, I'd love a hot water bottle. So I said to my man, like, oh, would you mind making me a hot water bottle? And he was like, yeah, 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 of course. And he started the mission. He like boiled the water, he got the bottle, he was like getting it ready. And then he kind of got really distracted. And like a few minutes went by, and then 5 minutes went by. And then I was kind of like, I'm just going to do it. So I went towards the kettle to start to pour the water, and I caught myself and I was like, oh my god, I've just totally emasculated him because I didn't trust him to finish it. And then
Right.
he ran into the kitchen and he was like, no, 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 Charlotte, I'm doing that for you. I want to do that for you. Let me do it. Go and sit
Oh.
down. And he like daddied me. And then I was like, I'm so sorry that I tried
Mm.
to interrupt that and that I didn't just trust your timing and that I was so like, yeah, that, and that's sometimes the issue that we want it on our time. We're like, give it to me now. Or like
Yeah.
he's not done the dishes when I would have done them. I would have done them straight after dinner. He wants to wait 2 hours and do it before bed. So then there's like this misalignment where we're like, oh, typical men, I have to do it myself because he's never going to do it. But
Right.
he's going to do it in his timing.
Yeah.
And it's my job right now to sit in the discomfort of waiting for that timing and not to interrupt him and take his mission away because they want to support us. They deeply
Right.
love having a purpose and a mission. And it comes back to
Right.
that movie, right? If we look at a man or a hero in a movie, they fucking love having a purpose. They are driven and lit
Yeah.
up by having a purpose. So when they can support us, they feel on purpose. They feel like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I can provide for her right now. This is,
Right.
yeah.
And I found, at least for myself, so often the impatience in that moment of like, he still hasn't done it. That impatience is my conditioning. being like, see, he didn't do it. When actually it might just be taking a minute, literally a minute longer. And it's like, whereas if like a girlfriend was doing it, I might not have that impatience at all. And so in those little moments, those are perfect places for us to catch. Oh, here's my, my mind being like, I'm proving myself right by being like, he didn't do it yet or whatever. And that's where we get to lean back and be like, what would it feel like to actually trust, to actually just soften a little here, and to actually believe that he's doing the thing and he's doing it in his way. And thank God he's doing it in his way, because his way is not my way. If I wanted it only in my way, then I'd be alone.
Mm, Fuck yeah, such an important lesson, such an important lesson for us to surrender and receive and soften into being supported, but not when we're in control. Like just
Right.
to let go of fucking control.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hard. Not
So
gonna lie, I find that so hard. Still working on the hyper independence, still letting it go, but
hard.
really appreciate the discomfort and the lessons of that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk to you about cock. So important. We're talking about men. So let's bring in
Mhm.
the cosmic conscious cock. And you
Yeah.
did an amazing post about healing our relationship to cock and not seeing it as this powerful, penetrative, hard, aggressive thing, but actually feeling the vulnerability and the power and the magic and the love in cock. So, can we speak about that? Like, I'd love to hear you voice a little transmission on healing our relationship to cock and seeing cock as this divine being.
Yeah. The first thing I'll say with that is, in order to heal our relationship to cock, we need to heal the relationship, the pain that we have experienced from cock, right? It's like if we if we've experienced trauma, pain, disrespect, and associated that with cock, that's something we get to work with, whether that's with ourselves, with a lover, with a partner, with a practitioner, with cervical massage, however we choose to heal that pain and that wounding. That is, I think, one of the first steps to rebuilding our relationship to cock. And so many women have experienced pain from cock, and to acknowledge that, to work with that, to work through that, to let our bodies deprogram that, unwind from that, and simultaneously to understand that cock is it is a life-giving, it is this entity of life and vitality and strength and power and the beauty of penetrative quality of this, like I'm entering and I'm giving life. Like that is the essence of cock. That is the energy of cock in its purest form. And cock can be used in a whole myriad of ways, but cock itself is this like beam of light, this beam of life-giving magic. And when we see cock as that, and when we start to shift our relationship to cock and see it as something so beautiful, so powerful, so also, like you said, vulnerable, so profoundly multidimensional, like the capacity of cock to be 1,000 different things and to hold 1,000 different energies and to create life nonstop and to give life and to give us so much pleasure and to receive our pleasure so deeply. When we start to shift our relationship to cock and to see it as that, to see it as something so deeply divine, something that we honor so, 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 so deeply, it allows us to completely shift our relationship to sex, to shift our relationship to cock. And I know for myself, there, I've definitely had periods of my life where I'm afraid of cock. And
Mm.
to move towards honor and reverence and delight and worship of something so deeply beautiful without ignoring my pain, with allowing my body to process whatever pain needs to be processed, but then say like this, I honor you. I see the magic and the divinity that you are, and I choose to engage with you in that way. And that allows us to engage with this like deeply spiritual sexuality, this deeply divine expression of sexuality, when we can treat cock, when we can treat our men with that level of reverence and appreciation, just as we would hope that they would treat our pussy, just as we would hope that they would treat our hearts and our beings and ourselves as a woman. And so again, it has to go both ways. And so if we want to engage with sexuality in that way, it's up to us to start to lean into shifting our relationship to cock.
Yes, thank you for bringing that mirror up. And I recently did a podcast episode on cock worship, and I brought up that exact thing. It's so juicy. It's been one of my most popular episodes, actually. So there's obviously a craving. And I work with women on yeah, treating their own body as a temple, treating their pussy as an altar. And then of course they crave that from their lover, but that mirror that you just held up is so important. Like, if we crave that, are we also giving it? Or are we treating his cock like a button with the same linear movements that we've been seeing on the internet? Or can we actually come with worship, with reverence, with honor? So I wondered if you had, to add on to my cock worship episode, 3 juicy tips on cock worship that allow us to like honor his divine essence through his cock.
I'm so curious to hear whatever happened in that episode. But 3 juicy tips. The first juicy tip that I have is, and I love that it's juicy tip. I'm like, I worship in and of itself.
I didn't even notice.
Oh my God. The first one I have is do cervical de-armoring, do vaginal de-armoring with yourself. Meet your own pain so that you can soften it and rebuild your relationship to cock, to the energy of penetration. The second thing I would say is intentionally create a moment or moments where you are interacting with a cock, whether it's a lover's, a partner's, or even a glass cock or a dildo, where you are approaching it with intentional reverence, where there's an, as you move towards it and as you hold it and as you look at it and as you lick it or touch it or whatever, however you're engaging with it, approach it with so much care, so much love, and find like the deepest thank you within your body and speak aloud all the things that you are grateful for. Thank you for all the pleasure. Thank you for your softness and your vulnerability. Thank you for your strength and your penetrativeness. Thank you. Thank you for all the life that you've created. And it's the personal cock, but it's also the universal cock, right? It can be like the things that you love about the specific cock, but also the energy of cock. And really taking a moment to repattern how you approach, how you perceive, how you share intimacy with cock. Third juicy tip.
Your face every time you say juicy tip.
I know.
It's just great.
The third tip, I mean, and this kind of bounces off of that second one. That one is more so like with an actual cock. But something else you can do is like put something that symbolizes cock on an altar for you. Maybe that's on an altar that you pray at, but have something that represents the phallic representation of fertility, something that represents, maybe it represents pleasure to you. I have on my altar, I have this stone inside of like a seed pod, and the stone is like long and has like a phallic quality. And for me, it has this beautiful representation of the seed pod is like holding it, and there's this it feels like this deeply universal symbol of the way that cock and pussy interact, and there's something so glorious in it, and having a place where you come to that energy with care and reverence and intentionality, where you might not actually be interacting with an actual cock in that moment, but it starts to actually repattern your relationship to it, and it starts to allow your all parts of your mind and brain and body to shift the way that you perceive, shift the way that you engage with the energy behind cock. So not just physical cock, but the energy behind it and the beauty behind it and the depth and the divinity behind it.
Mm, thank you so much for your juicy tips. That was divine. I actually have like this tiny little red jasper cock, crystal
Mm.
cock, on my altar. And one year I bought all of my friends these tiny little crystal cocks in all different
Oh,
crystals, and I gave them to my friends. And at the time, they just thought it was hilarious. But I was like, you know what? Sacred cocks on all of your altars. I don't care. Have it, take it, put it on your altar. And it's so incredible to have that, because yeah, to have it as that sacred space to go to
mm,
worship. And it's another thing that feels fucking empowering. If we can show up and hold sacred space for our lovers' genitals, it's deeply healing for both of us.
completely.
Yeah, it changes the
Completely.
game.
Yeah.
So whilst we're on the topic of sexuality, I'm going to wrap up with a final question around that. How can we snap out of the belief, the thick conditioning, and the messages of men just want sex? And you
Mm.
did an amazing post on this recently where you rewrote the like men just want one thing. And then you wrote like all of these. Everyone has to go and follow Fabienne on Instagram. I'll leave all the links in the show notes. But like that post was epic, because there is a very common message or belief or mindset story in many women that men just want one thing. Men just want sex. Men just want me for my body. So how can we start to snap out of that sick conditioning and yeah, really see that they are that multi-dimensional human just like we
Mm.
are?
In that post, I talk about how so often it's just completely not true that men only want one thing. And I also speak to, well, if that is the thing that he wants most, sometimes we have an idea about that being a bad, wrong, dirty thing where it's like, it kind of makes sense that he would deeply want to like be spiritually, physically, emotionally, energetically intertwined with a beautiful woman and like feel that sense of merging. Like it also deeply makes sense that that's something that he would want. And so there, I like to sort of de-shamify the idea altogether of if that's the most important thing to him, that kind of makes sense. And it's so often not. And there's a conditioning that we have that men always want it that impacts us, but it also impacts men. I've spoken to so many men who have a lot of trouble saying no to sex because they think they should always want it, where they think that if they say no to a girl, that means that there's something less masculine about him, or that he's going to make her feel a certain way that he doesn't want to make her feel unwanted, because there's this theory that men always want it. So if I don't want it, that means there's something wrong with her. Like there's so much conditioning around it that impacts both women and men. And so I think to de-shamify it and to say, well, if that is what he really wants, that makes sense. And also, that's probably not all that he really wants. And oftentimes, if that is what he is like most driven by or controlled by, often there's a deeper need and desire beneath it. And so often men will associate, I would say all of us will associate our sexual desirability in correlation to our self-worth. And so often what he actually wants is deep acceptance. What he actually wants is to feel intimacy. Like you said, a lot of men don't get a lot of touch if it's not from a lover. So often there's like a sense of deep connection that he's desiring. There's a sense of depth of heart that maybe he's only ever experienced in sex before. And so again, it's like shifting our lens from the like he only wants sex and that's bad to, well, what is it that he actually wants? Maybe he does want sex. Maybe there's a lot more that he wants as well, but and maybe that's our own conditioning and ideas that that's what he wants, but also creating space for the possibility of there's so much more to the story than we're seeing. And by de-shamifying it and seeing him as a human instead of a monster, we can actually experience so much more trust, so much more respect for each other, so much more closeness and intimacy that we both are actually craving.
Mm,
And I've
yeah.
heard a lot of men say that I actually made a post about this as well recently, where it's like I hear so many men say, like, sometimes I have no issue getting hard, and then other times it's so challenging for me to get hard. And then when we work through it a little bit more, they're like, oh, the times when it's hard for me to get hard is when there's not a heart connection. And I'm like, there might not be something wrong with you. Like your cock might actually just have more integrity than you do, right? Where it's like your body actually knows. Your body knows, like maybe your mind is like, I want to have sex, but what you actually want is connection. So you jump to sex because that's what you've learned you should do, but actually what you want is like sweetness and understanding each other and a different form of intimacy that sex can then come later on. And so I think opening up our aperture for seeing the goodness in men and seeing the intention behind it and seeing like the deeper desires behind what we've been trained to see.
Oh my God, yes. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Yeah, and also I feel like in the men that I've been with, I've had to kind of set up that safety that like I'm gonna make out with you, but I don't expect it to go anywhere. And then they soften and they relax. And sometimes they were scared to make out with me or be intimate with me because they've only ever had that leading to sex. So
Right,
then they don't do it unless they're turned on, or they kind of
right,
push away the making out because they think it has to go somewhere. So
right.
when men feel the safety and the permission not to always have sex, and when we don't project the expectation onto them, they open up to so much more intimacy and sweetness. Like you said,
Yeah,
that word is just perfect. It's that sweetness that they can feel safe to share when they don't feel like they have to have sex all the time or
yeah,
perform. It's like a magical portal for men to be de-shamed from
yeah,
wanting it, but also for us to give them permission not to want it. It's really
yeah.
powerful.
Totally. And I think it's great for all of us, for women, for men, for anyone to have experiences where we actually do very intentionally set that boundary of like, I would love to explore a little with you. I'd love to be intimate with you. Let's not have sex today, but I'd love to lean into that. I'd love to experience closeness with you and get to know you more on an energetic or emotional level. Can we have a makeout session? Like creating containers for it to happen where it actually takes not only the pressure off, but it also actually creates like a boundary that a container that we can play within and where we can actually explore like what is my heart's desire to share, like I'd love to experience intimacy with you. Here's sort of like a limit or a boundary for ourselves so that we stop associating intimacy with always leading to sex.
Yes. Fuck yes. That is so deeply healing. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. This has been epic. I could
This
keep
has been
going
such a
for,
great chat.
yeah, I could keep going for hours. There's so much of this wisdom that the world deeply needs. So thank you so much for sharing your heart, your mission, your experiences, your beautiful heart with the world. It's such an honor to have you here sharing it with us and my community. And you've got an epic podcast called All the Good Men. I would recommend everyone to go and watch that, especially if you're doing the reticular activating system work. Then listen to All of the Good Men on Fabienne's podcast because that's really deeply healing for that.
Yeah.
And how can we work with you right now? How can we find you? Is there anything that you want to invite the community into?
Yeah, the best way to find me and my work is my Instagram is Fabienne Annick at Fabienne Annick, which is it'll be in the show notes,
Yeah.
FABIENNEANNICK. It's a lot of letters. There's a lot of N's. Or FabienneAnnick.com. And currently my only offering that is for both men and women. I have a couples program that's men and women, and then I have a study group that is for men and women to do all this work together. And then the rest of my work is for men, sexual mastery, intimacy work for men, online courses. And I also do retreats. So Instagram and my website are the best ways to get in touch with me about all of that.
Thank you so much, you amazing, amazing human. I'm so honored. This work is lighting me up more than most things, and it feels like the deepest work I've ever done. So I'm just really grateful for the resources that you provide, and thank you for sharing yourself so abundantly with us today. And yeah, everyone go and check out Fabienne's links in the show notes. You won't regret it. Her wisdom is so powerful, so delicious, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you for the work that you're doing and the
Mm.
work you're doing internally and externally. I so deeply appreciate it. Thank you for such a
Mm.
beautiful conversation.